Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. So much happened since AEW All Out this weekend, and I'm going to go through all of it. And I'm going to start the show tonight by saying that Tony Khan absolutely 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, made the right decision tonight on stripping the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega of the AEW World Trios titles, and CM Punk being stripped of the AEW World Championship. All of that with suspensions, which we'll go into in a minute. We're going to go into that. What I am not going to do, which I did not do on Sunday night, because even when I recorded the show on Sunday night, the post show for All Out, you can hear that at wrestlingisreal.com. And by the way, if you go to the website, I did some changes to the website where now, when you go to the top of the page, you'll see the YouTube channel. And every new episode will drop right there on video. You can catch it there. And you can also look for all the latest episodes just underneath that, all on the same page, wrestlingisreal.com. Now, on Sunday night's show, I said specifically, I'm not going to talk about the fight. Everybody else is talking about it and going through it like it's Palace Intrigue. I don't care about that shit. And before what Tony Khan did tonight, I was not going to give a fuck about what that was about. Literally, I was going to put IDGAF Tony Khan, the whole CM Punk Elite dilemma, the dirty laundry. I don't care about that. What it is, it was something that didn't happen on television. Hey, that's the best part. All of this basically really never happened on television. The media scrum was on YouTube, and it was after the fact. Nothing reflected on the television product, nothing reflected on the pay-per-view product. Let's just make that point absolutely clear. So for anybody to think there's going to be some ramifications about that, no. Nothing about that at all. We heard commentary in the media scrum, which got attention mostly by the dirt sheets, who can't help themselves but feed onto this. But this is what you're going to get when you have media scrums made available for wrestling fans and for the wrestling press. So I don't blame the wrestling press for doing what they do. The dirt sheets taking this and going to task and going through and let's get Ace Steel and CM Punk's perspective, and let's get the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega's perspective. I don't care. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, on this program, I don't like to wallow in the mud of dirty laundry. I don't care about that. I like my clothes clean. And when I hear all this bullshit here about who did what, it doesn't matter. And I've heard everybody go across about, listen, you want to hear Wrestling Observer, Busted Open talk about it, you want to hear JD from New York, or Wrestling Soup, or wherever you like. Pick a show. This show's not going to talk about it. King of Podcasts doesn't subscribe, nor do I get myself in the mud with all this gossip and all this stuff that's going on. What is important is that there was an altercation as a result of the media scrum, which was unwarranted and unnecessary. Really, to do this in the locker room while, you know, things are still going on, it's really stupid. Now, what I can say is, with CM Punk, the fact that this kind of behavior coming at him out of here now doesn't surprise me. Look, you had him here for a year. I'm actually surprised Tony Khan signed him for more than 1 year. I would have, if I could have done it, I would have given him a nice big year of contract with an option to extend a second year. Honestly, I didn't believe when CM Punk came in about all this that he was going to work with all the young stars. He did. He did to a point. Plus, he also took the part of being around and working in some good angles and storylines, and he got the title run, which was going to have to happen because most people in that audience, the faithful AEW fans, were expecting him to be a champion again, especially for this company, much like Moxley or Jericho, right? That's what they were expecting. But for CM Punk, it didn't matter to me about him being there for the length of any particular long time. To me, it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, if he does get fired, then it's not going to make me lose any sleep, because I think he served the purpose of what AEW needs. To me, I mean, sure, CM Punk, he doesn't have to be in wrestling anymore. He got his run here. He got his year. He could have just had this run and just go off into the sunset. But no, he wants to be around for this. He's invested. But it's obvious that CM Punk does not play well with others. We've heard that for years. And I remember going through chapter and verse the CM Punk Colt Cabana story and the way he was treated by WWE on the way out. Listen, we all understand what he went through, and we all sympathize with him as to how he was treated. There is none of that going on here. CM Punk is concerned about certain wrestlers he feels are inferior to him because his legacy from 7 years ago and some of what he's done now makes him a top dog. Okay. The crowd makes him that way, sure. But for me, I'm still the person that loves the underdogs. There's something to be said about how some things are going on with AEW and how there are certain stars that are not pushed as high as others. When the Darby Allins and the MJFs, the Sammy Guevaras, the Orange Cassidys, the Jungle Boys, the Daniel Garcias, being focused on the program tonight, the future of this company, as opposed to where Eric Bischoff or WCW would prefer to have some of the veteran stars, maybe a Vince Russo would prefer some of these. No, not so much Vince Russo, but the older stars would be front and center that the fans expect to see, because some of these former WWE stars should be up at a high level, but they are. But they should also be there to help mentor and to bring over the younger talent, which is what Chris Jericho's doing, which is what Jon Moxley's doing, right? They're all doing that. Moxley benefiting with Hangman Adam Page, or Jericho working with, Orange Cassidy and Sammy Guevara and others, right? Come on. Those are the wrestlers I care about, the ones that know about the future of this company. Bryan Danielson, he hasn't made the championship yet, but he will be someday, pretty soon. He's another one that gets it. Those are the kind of stars you have. But when CM Punk is available, and you know what kind of buzz you were going to get last year by bringing him in, you did. Listen, you sold out 3 nights in Chicago this week, this past weekend. You have had a lot of sellouts of various shows when it comes to Target Center or working the Forum or, pick it. So CM Punk has benefited the company to some point. The ratings have been a little bit better. There were some points that were really good. And I think one of the things is that if anything that CM Punk has done in this company is really something to be heralded in his time in AEW, was the work he did with MJF. MJF benefited greatly with CM Punk being in this company. And we already had the run with CM Punk and MJF. We can go back to that again somewhere down the line. All right. But as far as I'm concerned, Maxwell Jacob Friedman coming out tonight with what initially started as a face promo, the crowd treated him like a baby face. He can do it. Like, it's funny where I heard Chris Jericho saying something about that Jericho would help MJF to be able to be a face, because MJF will be a tremendous baby face. We just saw a taste of that tonight. For a couple of minutes, he could have done it. He really could have. But it's just not him. I understand that. Look, give him some more time. I think down the line, when you really realize the MJF character might wane off on some people because of that big spotlight, how many years can he stay heel? Even Ric Flair had to turn babyface. All right? I mean, that's the things that are going to happen. You're going to have to. The Rock had to go babyface at some point. Stone Cold had to go babyface at some point. The best ones do. You can't help it. It's inevitable. You're going to turn babyface, MJF. You're going to. And because people love you, man. It doesn't even matter how much you can make hate out of that crowd. Listen, you do a tremendous job of pissing off that Buffalo crowd. You did. Fantastic work. And the fans over there, by trolling them like crazy, by talking about the best line was, maybe I'll go to the, there's another con in the wrestling business I'd rather work for, jolly old St. Nick. That made me laugh a lot. Like, I loved it. It's just great stuff. I mean, I would have hoped that with everything that was going on, there was positive momentum coming out of All Out because of that right there, because of MJF's return, which was wonderful. And by the way, CM Punk is injury prone. It's something to be said about where his career's been since he left WWE. Look, and like I said, the treatment, unfair. I understand that. I agree. But there's a whole lot that was done where he got a whole lot of success there. He was champion for 434 days. He met the love of his life. He married AJ Lee, whom he met in WWE, right? Like, it was one of those things where how many people have gone into WWE and they've found their soulmate, right? Like, we don't talk about Malachi Black, the fact that he has Thea Trinidad, aka Zelina Vega, back at home to comfort and support him in his time where, now he's being conditionally released, they say, or being released, or he's asked for his release. If he's gone, and if it is for a mental health reason, I hope he feels better. And I know he has Thea Trinidad at his side to help comfort him. Hopefully he will find his way. If wrestling is overwhelming for him right now, that's fine. Let it be. But CM Punk did benefit greatly. I mean, he doesn't get to be at the level. Listen, and we can talk about his work in Ring of Honor or his brief time in TNA during the pay-per-view years of 2002 to 2004, right? We can talk all about that. But the WWE really did elevate his star. They made him as big as he is. AEW benefited greatly by bringing him back. And where else was he going to go for wrestling? I mean, he was never going to go back, especially now he can't go back to WWE with Triple H. I don't think Triple H can mend that fence. But I already got my fair share of CM Punk. For me, it doesn't matter. Now, what is unfortunate is it's not so much the Young Bucks to me, because there is something to be said about when the Young Bucks and, Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes were all executive vice president, when they were putting that distinction. Well, you know what? The conduct by the Young Bucks, just by being involved in that, if they were provoking it or they were a part of it, unbecoming of management. And so that's their part. And with Kenny Omega, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if they're no longer if they're stripped of any kind of a majority shareholdership, any kind of executive vice presidential status. I hope that's gone for them too. The fines, I don't know if they're doing fines, but suspensions and relinquishing the belts was a shot across the bow to the entire locker room. And by the way, we know that there's been things that happened that people have been suspended or punished. Do you remember Jake Hader? He had the issue at Fyter Fest where he was fined and he was suspended. That was a thing that happened before. And that was the right thing to do with him. And I was looking back at suspensions and I was thinking, right, yeah, that's one that actually happened. He was suspended and fined after striking an official. 10-day suspension and had fined an undisclosed amount of money for striking an official following a TNT championship match. The issue with Eddie Kingston, he was suspended from AEW after a verbal dispute with Sammy Guevara. Okay, we know there's going to be some heat in the back. But I'll tell you what, warranted. This is where things need to be calmed down. Look, you got some very hot heads going on there, and a lot of people that are, they don't, in WWE, I don't think they'd be allowed to have this kind of stuff happening. This is where the leadership really needed to stand out. And if there was a staff meeting with the locker room tonight, or before the Dynamite live show tonight, leading the pack was Moxley, Danielson, and Jericho. Exactly right. The leadership needs to come into play. And so there need to be locker room leaders that need to come in and step up. Omega, Young Bucks just need to be talent at this point. And CM Punk, you know, he's out for an injury anyway. So he's going to be gone from this as well. If it was me, and if I were Tony Khan, you know, because of the issues for insurance, or just for the fact that he can't stay healthy, you know, keep him off TV for as long as you want. There's no rush to bring him back. You can bring him back next year if you want. Let him have all his time to rest. And if you can suspend without pay, better off. But they're not going to probably do that. Because with CM Punk, it'll be a delicate situation. He is a very litigious kind of person. We saw what happened with Colt Cabana. He called him out. He called him out during the media scrum. And calling out Adam Page, the fact that Adam Page was in a match tonight for the Tournament of Champions. Like, we're going to have to talk about that in a minute, about all the matches that are setting up now for everything. There's a lot being set right there, which makes sense. I mean, hey, it's too bad that all this stuff happened tonight, but, you know, it doesn't make a difference. All I know is that we heard all that happened here, and there's so much reporting from all different areas. And, you know, all this was not good. Tony Khan laid down the law. And I think he really likes to be like a player's coach in that locker room, because he does like all the people he's working with, it looks like. But you know what? This is the nature of this business. And he laid down the law. He righted the wrong that was going on and taking care of things. Like, what I will say is, there's all the stuff that's been said about who said what. But one of the things that was mentioned here was legal threats being made by Punk's side. I don't know if that's actually going to go far or what. Okay. But I will say this, that there's an investigation ongoing that will confirm or contradict what each side has claimed, according to Fightful Select. Dave Meltzer, first of all, there were reports that, and this is the bad part, first reported by Brian Lass, who works with Jim Cornette's podcast, and Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Senior Vice President, Chief Legal Officer Mega Parikh saw the fight happen. I mean, you had a legitimate AEW official that was an eyewitness to what happened. That's not good. So, overall, the Punk or Elite, so no CM Punk, no Kenny Omega, no Young Bucks after all that happened. Tony Khan started off the show announcing the world title would be vacated. A new champion would be crowned at Dynamite. No interims. New champion. Tournament of Champions, with the winner being crowned at Dynamite Grand Slam in 2 weeks. The trio champs vacated. New trios champions were crowned, and Death Triangle become new trios champions, beating the Best Friends. Right move on that. Great. And Daniel Garcia wins the Ring of Honor Pure Championship over Wheeler Yuta on Dynamite tonight. So, pretty newsworthy night across the board. A very good show at the end of the day. At the end of the night, it was a very good show. So, I can't complain there. Now, as for the Grand Slam Tournament of Champions, we saw that Bryan Danielson advanced into the tournament. And we know that Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho have first round buys. So Bryan Danielson being Heyman Adam Page, Sammy Guevara against Darby Allin will go on Rampage this Friday night. The winner will take on Jon Moxley, and Bryan Danielson will take on Chris Jericho in a semifinal match next week in Albany, New York. We got that. And the finals taking place 2 weeks from now at Dynamite Grand Slam. Excellent stuff. So, like I said, everything that was being done here was really well done. Was an excellent resolution to everything. What needs to happen is cooler heads must prevail. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk, they're going to come back into AEW now. They're going to come back and compete. Fall in the line. This shit was ridiculous. Uncalled for. Listen, I understand there's animosity back there. With CM Punk, there just is. You knew what you were going to bring in here. And for the most part, he had been playing ball. And for whatever reason, having his issues with Hangman Adam Page from the start, and it is also his issues with, it doesn't matter anything about the fact that CM Punk has his issues with people, his own personal animus with whatever. But I think the chapter's closed on a lot of things that happened that resolved after everything that happened. They've had talent meetings beforehand to take care of some of the animosity. And I guess, that was, it was precautionary, but obviously the message did not get clear to everybody else. And some of the bigger stars that should have held a better example to the rest of the roster did not. That should not happen anymore. So I'm glad that's all taken care of. It was so unnecessary. And at this point right now with AEW, they can't afford to have a lot of animosity or any mutiny on the bounty kind of stuff going on. Tony Khan did the right thing here. Tough but fair decisions tonight. So I'm happy for that. And as far as I'm concerned, the AEW product has not suffered as a result. And we could have definitely fallen in the WCW days for like 98, 99. We could have gone to the Vince Russo Bash at the Beach level of animosity. That could have very well happened. But Tony Khan has proven he's a much smarter businessman. And his love for professional wrestling does not preclude him from not doing the right thing for business. Excellent work. But more importantly, I got to say this to my fellow podcast wrestling brethren. Look, I'm glad all of you really enjoy venting and barking out all these different things you hear about with all the stuff that's going on. Oh, this person bit this person. Larry the dog got involved and whatever. Okay. I'm glad that all of you feed into that tabloidistic National Enquirer supermarket counter, checkout counter kind of shit. Okay. And I know it's that kind of thing that really does feed into the very belly of this Twitterati of wrestling, the Reddit users, the people that are doing Twitches or on Wrestling Talk or wherever. I get it. And because of the fact I don't go into that route, and I'm not some WWE mark, I'm not a mark for any company for that matter. I enjoy all wrestling brands for the most part, the ones that are on television. I do talk about WWE the most because it is the most important brand, and also because of the focus of how important what they're doing is to the rest of the wrestling world. Because if WWE is doing well, then the rest of the other companies will also follow suit. As I've said, the fact that WWE is right now riding its ship, their numbers are steady. They're staying over 2 million viewers every week now on both of their programs is a great thing. And the fact that Raw was able to pull over 2 million viewers with college football on Monday night, which they're going to have to deal with that kind of issue going forward, it tells you that things are going right now and that it's very important for AEW to also follow suit. They need to make sure of that. The college football game pulled just under 5 million viewers, and they doubled or tripled the demographic for Monday Night Raw. But even that, and the fact that Raw continued to stay consistent. 2.08 million for hour 1, 2.1 million for hour 2. The fact that at 9 o'clock, the audience grew in the middle of college football, of a Monday Night Live football game. And then they did drop off down to 1.954, but still consistently very good. Second, third, and fourth for the night. They ruled. That tells you a lot of what they're doing is right. And that's about as good as it gets for them. So WWE, we can talk about that in a minute, that it's their main event. Their main event picture needs to be fixed. And there's a lot of working on that. That's not going to be done overnight. But these mid-card changes that he's made so far have been very successful, and they're getting done. So I give him credit for that. And it's not being so completely reliant on debuts or things like that. Everything's working out pretty well so far. I give him credit. But there is the part where you got to get your main event shored up. And they're going to figure that out, I'm pretty sure. Where are they going to go between now and WrestleMania? I don't know. But either which way, I think with Dynamite, because of the extra publicity, negative or not, that they had, they're going to probably get a good number, better than they did last week for the Go Home Show to All Out, where they pulled over 1 million viewers. They're going to probably do that again. They might get a little bit more of a spike because some other fans, some curiosity will have brought some people over to that show to watch. Plus, they had titles all over the place to run up against tonight because of all the newsworthiness that happened. So good for them. But anyway, back to my point about my podcast, Wrestling Brethren. Listen, I love you all. I appreciate all of you that put out content on a regular basis. I am not the marks that maybe some of you are that really know chapter and verse of every different thing going out there. I'm not a solo monster, okay? And I've been pretty consistent with my message across the board for almost 10 years and 720 episodes. For me, it comes down to the fact that this show will never go into that level unless it's absolutely necessary. There's only a few times I've really had to go into something, which I listen, and I know people are going to listen to that. Right? Tonight's show, I know people are going to listen to it because right now, my numbers go up every time there's some gossip, because it's every wrestling podcast. When there's some news breaking going on, all of a sudden the numbers spike. I get it. But they're not going to go that high for me because I'm not going to go into the dirt like that and talk about this stuff. I'm so glad I let this all pan out. Because the other thing too is that everybody wants to get into this and start talking about it and live stream and this and that. Like, I was never going to do some special edition of the program to talk about this. When we have releases, absolutely. When we had the page incident with the videos, of course I talked about that. And there's other things we've had in the past that have been just the controversy. The time's up. I mean, you had to talk about that. There was no choice. But I don't like talking about it. I want to enjoy my wrestling. And I'm sure all of you that listen to this program or watch the show on YouTube and watch the little slate that goes on there as I run my mouth, I'm sure you feel the same way, that you enjoy wrestling, the sport of professional wrestling. Okay? That's what matters to me. I don't want this kind of stuff happening in my wrestling product. And the best thing that can happen is to not inject this in. Sometimes you're seeing things where some things might be brought into the surface that might show up in storyline or might be, a work, which I have to believe the MJF stuff had to be a work all the way across. All this stuff with CM Punk, he went into business for himself talking about Hangman Adam Page out of context. But that's what he did. And all of that has rolled over and it's been ridiculous. So now let's talk about the ramifications. I don't want to talk about the story of who said what in this backstage fight. Because if it doesn't even hold up in a court of law, it doesn't matter to me. All right. If you want to see what happened, I have links to all the stories on the description, WrestlingIsReal.com. You could go look there, go check it out for yourselves. There's been a number of things happening right now where CM Punk's future could be in jeopardy. And it's because of the part of where he's been right now and what kind of, if he's been very difficult to work with, difficult in the locker room. And there's enough reports out there to say the obvious. Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful Select, reports that the heat between CM Punk is unreal, quote unquote. Talent feels he would have to make major amends to remain with the company. Brian Last, who works with Jim Cornette's podcast and the owner of the Wrestling News website, reported that parties that were involved in the backstage incident have been suspended. AEW did not confirm. Wade Keller was on Pro Wrestling Torch's live podcast, saying there would be major announcements between now and tomorrow before Dynamite. And there was more being said about, no word about official suspensions, anything like that. We haven't heard anything about it. And no one was talking about it. A lot of conjecture and expectation. Sportskeeda put a story about CM Punk's relationship with the top heel in the company following backstage turbulence. Roseanne Raphael wrote the report that CM Punk took digs at the promotion's EVPs and Hangman Adam Page, and also slammed the returning MGF. Fightful Select reported that AEW talent and staff were under the impression that Page and Punk got along well with each other till the spring, and then some sympathetic words towards MGF's return, referencing when Punk won the AEW World title in Las Vegas and was beaten up by Wardlow. CM Punk allegedly has no real life issues with Assault of the Earth, despite citing him as, quote, one of the most stubborn kids he's ever worked with. And so far, we know that MJF is just destined to become world champion in the company. 3-year tenure so far. It's just a matter of time to see that. And it doesn't matter if MJF beats CM Punk for the title or he gets it himself. It should happen. But the one thing is that MJF gets to sit back and wait who becomes the winner at Tournament of Champions at Dynamite Grand Slam and can then confront said new AEW World Champion in 2 weeks. So he can sit back and relish in. All he wants is they're making their way through New York. Just imagine how MJF's going to be now the next 2 weeks leading up to that. Fantastic. Anything like the promo he did tonight. MJF is must-see television. He's one of the best things in wrestling today. He is arguably the best thing on AEW right now. He just is. He's a top star. He's the top heel of the company. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Toni Storm in her eliminator match with Penelope Ford. She is great as interim world champion. Excellent. And everything else with AEW, I'm happy with. I am content with the way that company is running right now. I'm happy with all of it. So let's talk about the story about the suspensions and who was going to be suspended. So here is what we know about that. I'm taking from WrestlingNews.co. And they take the report from the Wrestling News and Brian Last. The report says the suspensions were handed down to the people who were in the room during the incident that involved CM Punk, Ace Steel, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. So several AEW personnel who were in the room have also been suspended. Now, as far as I know, I don't know who those people are yet. I don't know if anything's has been put out yet about that. But I want to keep an eye on, see if there's anything I'm missing here about what's going to happen. We also know that the Swerve in Our Glory and the Acclaim are going to have a rematch for the World Tag Team titles at Dynamite Grand Slam. Fantastic. But so far, no one has said anything about who is going to be suspended for what happened backstage in the locker room. We don't know what that's going to be yet. But there have been names that have been spread across. If there's anything about that, we'll get. Yeah, I have no problem with the suspensions and what they're doing right now to that no one came out of this smelling like a bed of roses. It was whoever was in that room. And what's interesting is, for everything to happen with CM Punk and his beef with Hangman Adam Page was the one on TV tonight. Former AEW World Champion. He could definitely be world champion again. He's doing just fine. And very important for the company. He's a top star there too. So CM Punk's days could be numbered. And if that is the case, it's not going to bother me much at all, if that's where they want to go with it. So there are some comments out there about what people did say about this that I thought was interesting. The one name that really stood out to me that decided to comment about this was Eric Bischoff. Okay. And so on the most recent podcast of 83 Weeks, Eric Bischoff said this. He's paying that cat lots of money, quote. He's paying CM Punk a fortune, and CM Punk is cutting his balls off, not only in front of everybody else on the roster, the executive team, the production team, oh, by the way, his business partners, like Warner Discovery, potential advertisers, potential sponsors, maybe even if need be a potential network to sell their show. Should something go wrong with the Warner Discovery merger? For what reason? Bischoff said it would be a different story if this was something they planned on making money with a situation, which does not look to be the case. Quote, if there is money in it, if it was part of a story, and everybody I just mentioned, including TV partners, are on board and understand what you're doing, have at it, man. It could work. I'll be your biggest fan. I'll support taking a risk like that because you have to take big risks to gain big rewards. You just do. Not all of them work out, but you got to try. And if that's what they're doing, hats off. If everybody's on board. But if Punk is just venting his spleen, spreading the heat around the entire roster, instead of focusing on his opponent, which is businessman, I feel bad for Tony. Oh, here's the story I meant to go and talk about when it comes to the suspensions. Sports Illustrated, and this is Justin Barrasso that reported it earlier today, that the people that will get suspensions is Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, Pat Buck, the producer, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brandon Cutler. And there are multiple sources that say that Punk and Ace Steel will be among those suspended or will no longer be with the company. And Punk met with AEW Tony Khan on Tuesday, and the two had an opportunity to discuss how that exit could be handled. Per sources, an external third-party investigation will be conducted. Page had already left the building. Sports Illustrated learned, which explains his absence from the altercation. I want to go into the actual what happened here and what brought all this together. Justin Barrasso did a great job of explaining everything here, because it's not right for me to go ahead and make commentary. And if some of you did not know the whole story of what happened, I might as well just be the reporter here and actually just bring up what was said. There it is. Punk's fury was ignited during the press conference where he made mention of former friend Colt Cabana, and rumors circulating that Cabana had moved to Ring of Honor, or Punk had Cabana move to Ring of Honor, and Punk clearly believes those rumors emanated from leaks within the company, possibly even from Omega and the Bucks. Punk vehemently denied involvement in any facet of Cabana's career, and that topic of discussion set him off. So what if Colt Cabana's on Ring of Honor? I don't look at it as a demotion anyway. If he's going to be used on Dark and he's not even part of the Dark Order anymore, yeah, Ring of Honor talent, Colt Cabana makes sense. So let him be there. So what? And then Justin Barrasso goes along and ties in WWE with some of the things that are going on, saying that Tony Khan mentioned during the press conference, All Out did well commercially, but not to the point where it set any company records because of the must-see event the day before in Clash at the Castle. And the NXT special When Worlds Collide only hours before AEW started its All Out pay-per-view. Look, and that's a Nick Khan strategy to go ahead. But that's not even so much Nick Khan. The fact of the matter is that Nick Khan wants to have events on major holidays. So having this event on Labor Day weekend, that's probably going to be a normal thing. Even though he'll have SummerSlam, after that, they're going to probably start holding a normal Labor Day weekend event anyways. So that might be something that happens down the line. That's just how it's going to be. And I don't think that AEW is even considered when it comes to those decisions. So Tony Khan might feel slighted by that. And I can understand why. And so one of the things that people are talking about, and it does make sense to me, is if there is, and this is the larger story, we're obviously hearing some disgruntlement right now by maybe some AEW talent that maybe some of those people that came in with contracts because of the budget cuts that were made by WWE, the future endeavors that were done from 2019, 2020, 2021, all that happening here. Sure, they found homes in AEW, but maybe not permanent home. We know that things can always change, and there are certain stars that might not stay around. Tony Khan, for the right reasons, did bring on quite a bit of teams to that roster. And sure, maybe he's not been able to use all that talent. He's given them time. Have they been prominently placed every week? And are they working all the time? No, probably not. He's got a lot of people. Hard enough to get Andrade and Rush and the House of Black and the Hardys and all the members of the Blackpool Combat Club or the Jericho Appreciation Society or Stokely Hathaway's crew or the Trustbusters or what have you. There's a lot of people they have on there, and they're not all going to be put on Dark Elevation. But I think that's all going to... I think he did take on all that roster talent because of where things were, and getting a chance to evaluate this talent, he'll be able to see which stars he can bring in, because some of this was, the opportunity to bring these stars in with all the name recognition they needed, and then you'll see which stars pan out that will really be detrimental to the company. Because like I said, for every one of the Andrades or Rushes and all this prime talent that you have right here that could be still working in Japan or Mexico or go to WWE if they can, whatever there is. Then you have the Stings, the Jerichos, the Danielsons, the Moxleys that are definitely staying with AEW, it looks like. I mean, Moxley made it a point of my company, right? They're all staying. They're not going they're not going back to the other company. It doesn't look like it. Not anytime soon if that's even going to happen. So they're the ones that want to mentor young talent. They want to be a part, and they want to make something of the company, right? Which is great. And when it comes to if there's any stars like a Malachi Black that want to find their way back into WWE, well, guess what? They got an olive branch in Cody Rhodes, who probably has an ear to Triple H if there's any AEW talent that might reach out to Cody to say, hey, talk to Paul for me. See if he's going to let me come on back if we can set something up. And they could. Could very well happen. So now here's what's being said here on the overall point that Barrasso makes a point of. There's a robust new wave of recruitment. What if multiple talent in AEW attempt to leverage your releases? They want to think it's like going to be another Radicals in WWE again, like it was leaving WCW. I get that. Okay. They all want something that's like Attitude Era booking all over again. AEW built so much of their brand as a contrast to McMahon's poor booking and lackluster presentation of beloved talent. But see, here's the thing. With AEW, they're going to have to change a little bit because they don't have to counter program. Like, part of the reason where AEW was what it was the revolution. Well, they don't have to be the revolutionary company anymore. They're established right now. We know what AEW is. We kind of know what their identity is. So what needs to happen for them is they need to be the solid number 2 company and honestly not worry about WWE right now. I mean, sure, there will be competition will kind of stir up things like we said with some of the things they've done. Triple H wasn't responsible for Clash at the Castle. That decision was done earlier this year while Vince was still in charge. I think everybody's going to stay in their own lane. But what needs to happen too is that because of what's happening right now with WWE right now, and the fact that their numbers are solid right now, and the way the company's growing anyway, the TV product getting shored up only solidifies the status that WWE is going to get a better TV deal coming up. That's going to happen. Now, WWE has quickly strengthened the storyline since Levesque took control of creative, and they're evolving. So now we know that the expiring TV rights deals for AEW and WWE are going to be coming up. Based on the ratings, AEW should be in a position to receive a significant increase in rights fee. Well, they're getting it for a good deal. So if they can get bumped up to near $100 million a year, that'd be great for them. And I believe they're going to get some kind of a bump, and they're going to stay with Warner Brothers Discovery because Warner Brothers Discovery they prefer programming like what AEW does. Reality-based, live, not scripted. They want what AEW is offering. Well, anyway, we worry about that in 2024. At the end of 2024, we'll figure out how that goes. But right now, Warner Brothers Discovery and the marketplace is unsure of their current strategy. WWE also has a need for new networks rights deals, and existing agreements with NBC, Universal, and Fox only run through the end of September 2024. Weakening AEW while further solidifying their own brand is the objective for WWE. I don't know if that's true or not. But if WWE gets a good deal in September, so they're obviously their deal is going to come first. The TV rights negotiations will come for WWE first. AEW will follow after that because that extra gap in time. With that said, if WWE gets a good bump, then I could see where AEW also gets a good bump. Because if WWE right now, they get some other suitors that want to negotiate, at least we just hear them by name alone. If ESPN comes into the mix, if, CBS comes into the mix, whatever it is. If somebody other networks come into the mix as bidders just to amp up the game, Nick Khan will be detrimental to that. Like, he will be making his money again and then some by what he does here with the negotiations of another TV rights deal. What's going to happen now is AEW needs to follow the same suit. For AEW, they're going to benefit from how well WWE does when that helps out, right? And so Barrasso concludes and says that AEW right now is the wrong time for chaos. They need to tighten up its internal affairs. The pro wrestling industry is a far stronger place with two companies major instead of one overwhelming monopoly. Tony Khan handled that tonight very well. For the good of his company, for the good of AEW, and for the good of the fans, honestly, he did the right thing tonight. And I'm glad he did. It was extremely important that everything got nipped in the bud. And I believe he's done that. Great news. And I'm glad I'm not going to have to talk about this anymore. I think AEW can now move along as it should. Position itself for Dynamite Grand Slam. Meanwhile, WWE will start setting things up for Extreme Rules in 5 weeks, right? Good for everybody. Wonderful. Now, couple of WWE notes before we get into what happened with Raw and the fact that Braun Strowman has returned. We'll talk about that in a minute. I will say this about Pat McAfee. I just realized, so this is a big deal for him. He's going to be a panelist now during ESPN's College Game Day. Now, I don't know if that means he's going to replace Desmond Howard, or if he's just going to be another person on the panel with Chris Fowler and Lee Corso and the rest. I don't know. But man, Pat McAfee being part of that crew, look, there's a reason why. For ESPN right now, they are in desperate need of giving some new energy to the college pregame show for college football. Pat McAfee and the energy he brings to SmackDown to do that outdoors, because remember, ESPN College Game Day, they go on the road. So they're in different locations all over the country, major college stadiums prior to games. And there's a crowd like crazy that will be out there. And Pat McAfee will stand up and he will go ahead and rise up that crowd. He'll rile them up. And that's a great thing for them. And so for Fox, they're doing a great thing right now with their Big Noon Kickoff, which is only been for a few years. It originally was over on Fox Sports 1. Now, Fox has the noon kickoff for Big Ten broadcast. Big 12, Big 10, and Pac 12. And they now have a very strong cast in Rob Stone, Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, Bob Stoops, among others. Like, it's just solid. So Fox already has Rob Stone, Brady Quinn, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and Urban Meyer going to be we're coming back for Big Noon Kickoff. Young talent, a lot of former players, all that going on. Pat McAfee gets added to the mix where, well, you know what it is? That's the whole thing, is that Pat McAfee replaces Kirk Herbstreit, who's been missed on that show, but he's over now on Thursday Night Football with Amazon. So there's that. And with that said, I think things work out really well for Pat McAfee, and he'll be gone for a few months. So I guess he'll be back, first week of December, second week of December? That's when we expect him to come back. But either which way, Triple H says that Pat approached him about amazing opportunity with College Game Day. We'd never stand in Pat's way as he continues to architect his exceptional career. He'll remember a member of WWE Universe, and we'll look forward to his return. So we'll see him back in December, probably, after college football is done. So for a few months, we won't have him. So I don't know if that means Corey Graves takes over or somebody else gets brought into that announcer's chair, but, that's fine. And it's not a bad thing because, with Pat McAfee, he's not going to miss WrestleMania season. Like, he's going to be around for all the good stuff. Like, if his normal setup now for College Game Day means he's working from the start of January, day one, all the way up to Labor Day weekend and whatever the show's going to be, if it's under the Clash of the Castle or something else next year, that's a pretty good chunk that you get of him. That's good. So I can appreciate that. I hope he does really well with that. I think he's going to be a fantastic fit for that show. And I'm actually might just tune into College Game Day just because McAfee's there. So let's see what happens. But yeah, that's what's happening, is that Herbstreit's gone. They need to find somebody else good to fit there. Pat McAfee will be an injection of life to that show, which will be very important. Oh, I forget. It's been so long since I've been watching College Game Day. It's Reese Davis that does the show. And I guess Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, and David Pollock will continue to be on the show as well. They're just making a big old fun ride over there. Okay, just wanted to clarify that for myself. So now I want to go ahead and wrap things up with what it means right now with some of the changes that Triple H has been doing right now, the ongoing changes he's been doing right now with Raw and SmackDown. So most notably, I like the move they did with turning Dominic Mysterio heel and joining Judgment Day. I think they handled that really well. Excellent job by that. And that's how they started things off with the Judgment Day to start off Monday Night Raw. And then you had the Fatal 4-Way match for the Undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships, number one contenders match, which was all cleared out by Braun Strowman. The crowd was hot for him. I'm wondering if Braun Strowman coming into this space now can be made a main eventer again. I don't see why he can't. The guy's in amazing shape right now. He looks great. He's been on TV, off TV long enough that, you could definitely do something with him. And sure, are we all going to complain about the fact that Braun Strowman is back and if he's going to take on Roman Reigns again? I mean, he could. I mean, a couple of years away might have done him good. But for those that are going to be complaining about that, I just think that we got to do something here, man. Braun Strowman's over as a face. If you need to take him over on SmackDown and do something with him, go for it. Now, the fact that he wiped out the New Day, Alpha Academy, Street Profits, and Los Lotharios in this number one contenders fatal 4-way match, well, they're going to have that match again, I guess. And yeah, I understand that, no contest. And does anybody think the Usos are going to lose to any of these tag teams? I mean, that's part of a bigger problem. And that tells you a lot, the fact that no one expects any of these teams to do anything right now but there is not one legitimate team that's a legitimate tag team big enough or strong enough to handle the Usos and beat them for those tag team titles. They don't have an answer for that, and they don't have an answer yet for Roman Reigns. But you can very well build up Braun Strowman as another opponent for him right now. He could be if you can build that guy up into like a Brock Lesnar type of monster, that'd be great for them. And the most important thing is Braun Strowman is not going to be scripted. He probably won't have the scripting he had to do before, which will help a lot. The only thing I got to say is that I wish he had somebody that was going to be out there with him. And you might not like this answer, but I'm going to just say this. I wish EC3 could have come along. Listen, control your narrative, whatever was going on with that. If there was any way to get EC3 back and just take that CYN narrative of just those two guys and tell them to just get rid of that whole idea, that nonsense of a promotion, and take that gimmick and just purpose it right into WWE. CYN. Just take it, put it there. But it would be EC3 controlling Braun Strowman. But they wouldn't do that. But Braun Strowman should get somebody accompanying him. He should have somebody that accompanies him to the ring. It would be nice to see him with a mouthpiece. And I don't know who you're going to get. I'll tell you what. If you don't do anything with Braun Strowman down the line, you call me crazy. Call me crazy. We haven't seen Omos in a while. What if you do get the Usos going up against a newly created tag team of Omos and Braun Strowman with MVP as the mouthpiece, accompanying both to the ring? Shit. It's not a bad idea. And, you can have that idea if you want. Just saying. So Austin Theory right now taking a lot of losses, but he still holds the briefcase. And that's not great, but Kevin Owens getting, at this point, being pushed forward. That's what they want to do. And unfortunately, we didn't get Theory and Gargano really moving along with that. Gargano just having a backstage segment, but they haven't used them yet. Bayley and Bianca setting things up now. Coming up, that's good. And Kai and Sky are going to get to go after the tag team titles again because Kai wasn't legal when she was pinned last week. So you made a reason to go and bring that up. And then we get the steel cage match with Bobby Lashley and The Miz, and Dexter Lumis is involved. I'm enjoying all that. The Dexter Lumis stuff is good. I just don't know where you're going to go with it. But him and Miz, I guess, that makes for something entertaining. That's fine. That's good for television. But what I need to see is if Braun Strowman can be made into a main eventer again. Roman Reigns needs to be fed other opponents. Obviously, if you're not going to have this guy lose by WrestleMania, we need to build some other opponents for him. Build them back up. And Braun Strowman is about as good as any to bring back up now and build him up to a feud. But I would like Braun Strowman to be accompanied by somebody out there. If we could do that, that's just my point. I don't want Braun by himself talking. Maybe he'll do just fine. Maybe, let's just see if they have him cut a promo next week, if he actually can go through it and it comes out well. I'm hoping it does well. I really do. That's the show. One more time, remember the website, wrestlingisreal.com. Look through all that, if you wouldn't mind. And like I said, when you go there, you're going to see now the video portion on the YouTube channel. You'll see the newest episode right there for you. You can watch it on YouTube, but you can go right to the page, subscribe, and all that good stuff. You can do all that right there. Subscribe on YouTube or go ahead and subscribe to the show. Listen to it on audio form. It's all available for you right there. One place, wrestlingisreal.com. Just remember, every week, new episodes, Wednesday going into Thursday, post shows, you got, yours truly's got you all covered. So all that's there for you. Plus the latest news headlines, all the ways to subscribe to the show, and all the ways to follow yours truly throughout. And you can find all my other podcasts. Everything's there for you. Check it out. And thanks for listening in to another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.